this module, we're talking about focus and concentration, which in my mind are an interchangeable word, because if you're focused on something, someone, a 150-yard marker, catcher's mitt, you're focused on it, then you're concentrating on doing the action that will get you to that, whether it is pitching a baseball, hitting a golf shot, whatever it is. So focus and concentration are, let's just say they're basically the same thing, but they are the thing that every great athlete must do in order to take their game from one level into the next level. So in this module, we're going to talk about what is focus and concentration and how an athlete can increase it, and how you as a consultant or a coach can help them increase their focus and their concentration. A quick definition of focus and or concentration is the ability to think about a thing free from distraction. Now, that's quite a definition, because is it an ability? And if it is an ability, can it be a learned ability, or is it something that someone has automatically? So the answer to that question is yes and yes. I think some people have the ability to concentrate and focus simply because of their personality. You know, they get into a place, this thing called the so-called zone, and then that's it. They're just there. They're able to blank out everything else and all external factors around them, where other people are very sensitive to their environment. And you know, that's an important thing too, is that people need to be sensitive of their environment, and you don't want to walk around with your head straight down with so-called, you know, head in the sand, not being aware of your surroundings. But the difference is that a person who is locked into focus and concentration, they're looking sort of straight ahead, you know, as far as concentrating on what they're doing, but they're not being affected by that environment. And other people may be in the same environment, and then they get agitated or cognitively aroused, let's say, looking at a scoreboard, you know, looking at where are they on the leaderboard, that sort of thing. And then those things come into their mind, taking away from focus, you see. So then the focus now shifts from what they need to do and being able to concentrate on the mechanical move. And it now, because of the focus, has been changed from I need this, or I got to do this, or I have to do this. Well, that takes away from concentration. So that's why the two are linked, focus and or concentration. You might want to say one is global and the other one is just sort of pinpoint, if that's how you want to put it. Either way, there are certain things that you can help an athlete in doing, or if you are an athlete, things that you can do to increase your focus and levels of concentration. And like I said, the first thing is you got to be aware. Be aware of what is going around you, and so that you're not susceptible to things that could decrease your level of focus and concentration. You're aware of what's going on around you, but you're not focused on those things. Whereas the person that is losing focus, that person may be looking in the same direction that you are, but yet they are actually focused on the thing that is in the crowd, that is on the scoreboard. They're focused on that. You, on the other hand, or the athlete that you're working with, they can be looking at the same scoreboard, but it doesn't take them out of the routine. It doesn't take them out of their focus. What am I need to do now? What do I have to do in order to get to the place that I need to be? So there you go. There's the difference. Both aware. One is allowed to disrupt, if you would. The other is they're in their zone, if you want. I hate to use that word because it's been so overused, but they're in the space, cognitive space, which I have called the puzzle. So you can go back and do a review of this thing called the puzzle. And they're in their space, putting the pieces of the puzzle together to do what they think is necessary to get them to where they want to be. So that would be the difference right there. Both are aware. One is allowing distractors to come in, the other is not. First thing is awareness. Second thing is being aware of what could happen to you as an athlete if you did allow a thing to seep in past one of your shields of defense there. So let's say that you're on the golf course and you see that you're on the leaderboard, but you've got to have birdie, on the last one or two holes or something like that. Well, that's gotten you out of the thing that you were already looking for birdie here. But now you may be thinking that I've got to have birdie. Well, then you might press. You might want to press. So you then you're aware of that. You're aware of what the situation could entail here. You're aware that it could happen. But now that you're aware of it, you can just cut it off right there at the stem. You're not allowing the situational anxiety, what could be causing situational anxiety, to disrupt your performance. You have become aware, and you've become aware that, in the past this could have caused me a problem, but now I'm just going to focus on my routine. So that'll be the second thing. Is awareness is first, and then the second thing would be to sort of understand what could have happened, and I'm not going to allow this to happen. I'm going to stay in my routine. So it's almost as if there's a constant chatter in the mind, but instead of becoming agitated or letting anxiety come in there, the what ifs, things that can't be controlled, this person has preempt that and stay disciplined in their mind of what they need to do in order to achieve what they're trying to do. They're staying disciplined in their mind. One of the other things about awareness is, let's say a player is walking down the fairway, or they're getting to the last innings or something that could cause them anxiety. Then they are now be aware that this could be a situation that could cause them some anxiety, and they understand the reasons of why. They get it. They know that this is coming down to the last inning, this is coming down to the last hole. They acknowledge this situation. We're not living in denial here. So it's very important that the player is open to these things, but they simply refuse to let it deter them. They're not going to allow situational anxiety to throw them off of their routine. They are aware. Again, I use that word. An athlete is not in denial. We don't want that. We want them to become aware, because the more they're aware, then the more they can become aware of their physicality, the somatic reactions due to stress. Because if they get into a situation, oh my gosh, I need a birdie to, get into a playoff, well, that could cause a fear response right there, trying too hard. Swing gets short, something like that, because the body now has been flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, and so now they've lost their feel or their automaticity. The athlete is aware of these types of things and continues to breathe, continues to do muscle relaxation. They are aware. I say it again and again. It's very important that the athlete is totally aware of these situations, what is liable, could happen in those situations, and then they just acknowledge that stuff and they stay in their routine. They simply reframe it. If some of the words start to happen, the inevitable words, the what ifs, I need to, got to, should have, must, and all those type of things, these are words that can cause great anxiety. And the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between those two. It doesn't know. Stress is stress. Anxiety is anxiety. There's no levels of it, certainly in the realm of athletics. And so the athlete can turn those types of situations from a negative into a positive. It's just really simply, it's called a reframe. And I address that, in the self-talk module. But so, we get down to the last hole, we got to have birdie to win or birdie to get into a playoff. The player acknowledges that. And so then you may have to change the strategy going into this last hole. You may have to change the strategy going into this last play. I realize that I've got to have birdie here, and so therefore it's worth the chance of hitting it close to the pin. Normally I wouldn't hit it at this pin because it's a sucker pin placement or something like that. But because, I've got to have this birdie to win, and hitting it close to the pin is the only way, really, the best opportunity to make birdie, then this is what I'm going to do. And you just simply talk it out. Reasonableness, pragmaticism really is what this is. Because the subconscious mind is going to perhaps get a little bit anxious on you in that talk that happens due to anxiety, fear, or excitement. It could flare up. And so just to sort of discuss it with yourself on a reasonable level is a technique that you can use or help your athlete to use to be able to overcome these types of situations so it doesn't overtake them in the field at those special moments that every athlete hopefully looks forward to getting themselves into. The last hole, the last pitch, the last play. Some athletes love that kind of stuff. They really thrive. They look forward to those kind of things. Other athletes in the past, I've seen it all of my life. They fold up like a hothouse lily. They shy away from that kind of stuff, and partly due to they did not know how to deal with situational anxiety. Maybe they were thinking about the what ifs. They couldn't get their mind off of what could happen if they don't do this. That's the kind of language that causes great anxiety, causes the body to get tight, causes golf shots to go right and left, causes footballs to go long, short, and so forth and so on. They lost their focus due to allowing external factors to come in and disrupt their concentration. This is part of the reason why. Situational anxiety and self-talk that causes it. So let's say in an applied example, an athlete says, well, I got down to the end and my mind just started going off the chain and things started happening in my mind. I couldn't shut it down. Okay, fine. And so there are a couple of techniques I want to share with you now that you can relay on to your athlete, or if you are an athlete, there's a couple of things that you can do in order to arrest that when you're in the heat. You're right in the mud of this whole thing. You're there and it's happening. And the voice is saying, please just don't throw it out of bounds, or just don't hit it out of bounds, something like that. So when you're in the heat, in these types of situations, you got to continue to breathe. That'll be the first thing. Just breathe. The breath makes the capillaries in your hands stay open, keeps the blood flowing to your brain, makes you, hopefully, keeps you clear-headed. When you're in the fight or flight mode or the freeze mode due to anxiety, then that can cause the body to get tight. Blood flow focuses then now center of the body. And so because of the vessels have gotten constricted. And so the breathing then keeps the blood flowing, and it helps to regulate the adrenaline, that heart beating out of your chest. You keep breathing, and then that adrenaline will keep dissipating out of the body. But you're aware of it, and you're not fighting it. You just simply are aware of it. Once it happens, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. Just keep breathing. So then you want to focus then on what is it that you want to achieve here. So the little voice may be raging about what you want to avoid. Please don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. That's a negative command that the subconscious mind is not going to be able to comprehend. So then the self-talk then is part of the key. The breathing being the awareness is the first part. Breathing is the second part. And then the third part is going to be the way the words are actually coming out of the cognitive mind. You focus in on what is it that you're trying to achieve. What do you want instead of what you're trying to avoid? Again, we're going back to motivation here. Some athletes are in great distress because they're focused on what they're trying to avoid. Don't hit it right. I don't want to miss it right. Don't do this, don't do that. Subconscious mind is confusing. Instead of that, you can just override that cognitively and say, just hit it right at the pin, or just do this, do that. And then you can get yourself back focused in on what you're trying to achieve. Subconscious mind will just go along with that, but you have to give it clear and distinct, simplistic really, if you can keep it as simple as possible. Just make it short and sweet, distinct. What is it that you want? Okay, fine. Can you do that? Can you have the ability to do that? Have you practiced it enough? Yes, I have. Then you should have the confidence. You can have the confidence in order to execute the action that you're trying to perform. Is what you're saying, does it make sense? Is it not some pie in the sky thing? In other words, you're not trying to pull off something that you've not practiced. Because if you do that, then you've got very little chance. You haven't practiced it enough to become automatic. And so you have got to give yourself the best opportunity in order to be successful. And in order to do that, you need to do the thing, whatever that thing is, in your sport or in the sport that you have practiced many, many hours, many, many years, more than likely, so that you don't have to think about the motion. If you start thinking about the motion, that's when the words get in the way of the motion, because the motion is happening this fast, the words are happening this fast. And so if this is standing in between this, then it gets in the way of automaticity. Automaticity being fluidity, fluidity being successfulness. And so this is why the words need to stand out of the way. Just tell your subconscious mind, this is what I want to achieve. This is why I want to achieve it. And yes, I can do it. And it makes perfect sense to me. That way there's no conflicts in the brain. There's nothing there that is going to cause the subconscious mind to reject what you're trying to do here. It makes perfect sense. And you're trying something, or you want to do something that you've done a million times before. Every ship is sailing in the same direction. There are no conflicts. Very important to overcome situational anxiety and maintain your focus and concentration. Once you have reconciled in your mind, this is exactly what I want, this is why I'm going to do it, makes sense, then hopefully you can just switch it on and just do your best. And then that gives you room for failure. If you just say, look, I'm just going to do my best here. I'm doing my best. If it doesn't come off just right, then you've given yourself a little break, a little slack. You're not perfect. You're not trying to be perfect. And so then that gives you a little bit of room for maneuverism here, whereas, you're not coming down so hard on yourself, like, gosh, I didn't pull off that shot at the last hole at this tournament or this inning or whatever. No, just do your best. If you do that, that's all you can do. Perfectionism, there's no place in that in athletics. And so if you'll say in your mind, hey, just do your best, that's all you can do. And then that gives you a little breathing room, a little bit of variance, if you would, to allow the brain to not have to be so focused on perfectionism. And then that'll give you the freedom to do your sport, or the sport, to the best of your ability. There is another technique that was sort of harsh, but it does work, but sometimes it's only temporary. It's called the stop technique. So, the words are flowing in your mind. You can't get your subconscious mind, the little voice can't get it to shut up. You can literally say in your mind, just stop. And the voice will stop temporarily. And while there is silence in your mind, you can replace that with the thing that you want to accomplish. And so it's like a traffic cop, if you would. It's like a stop sign. If you will use the stop technique, the voice, more than likely, it'll shut down. Don't know how long it's going to last, though. But it is a technique that you can use to shut that voice down and then replace it with what you want and then go forward. So it is sort of I guess it's a harsh technique, maybe in desperate times, but it does work. Don't know if it works all the time and don't know how long it's going to last, but it is a technique that you can use. Another thing that you can do is, I had mentioned already about things that are in your periphery, external factors that could cause you or cause your athlete to become distracted. And let's say if you're in the arena and you're looking around and the crowd, and then you see somebody, a parent or a girlfriend, boyfriend or something, a scout, that right there can cause great anxiety. It can get you away from what you're trying to focus on, what you're trying to concentrate on, because then you've allowed an external factor in. So one of the techniques that I use with my clients and athletes is practice eye control. Is keep their eyes just straight ahead or downish, just straight ahead until the thing is done. And then enjoy the moment after that, after you've had your success, hopefully. But looking around and this kind of thing, there are techniques that you can look and just glaze everything. The crowd becomes just, blurred over. There is no one person in the crowd. And I've seen athletes that I've done it myself. But I think it's better, though, just to keep your eyes in front of you so that you don't get distracted by things that are in your peripheral or in the external. And so that way there's no chance that somebody wearing a crazy, outfit, or somebody yelling at you, or you see somebody or something like that, you don't get distracted. This is not, I know we see it in movies, The Natural, looks up in the stand, that's the movies, that's Hollywood. I'm talking about real life. So it's best when you're trying to focus, you're trying to concentrate, is to keep yourself within yourself. And eye control is it's a big deal. And so it's something that if you hadn't tried that, or if you hadn't had your athlete try that, I think it could work for them. It's a very powerful thing. And lastly, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful technique, if you would, to increase your focus and concentration is simple mindfulness. I've got a separate module on mindfulness, but this is a thing that goes beyond the so-called zone. It is a thing, it's a non-judgmental approach to athletics or performance, whereas there is no good or bad. There is no important, non-important. There is no significance, non-significance. It is what it is. And it almost sounds like Eastern philosophy. Perhaps it is. But the thing about mindfulness is you have eliminated, or the athlete has eliminated, anything that could possibly interfere with performance. Anything that could interfere with performance. And that certainly, obviously, includes the mind. There has been the proper preparation before and during. And then you just simply execute. It's a thing that I call dry execution. It's just something that happens. Now, with young people, of course, that's going to be a more difficult thing, a more challenging thing, simply because they are emotionally unregulated yet. Still developing literally and physically in their brains. But for the adult athlete, and this is a technique that helps an athlete eliminate any of the highs and the lows of athletic performance. The highs and the depression, exuberation. Depression and exuberation. Just one of these just are here. And so what I'm suggesting here is to eliminate all of these and then keep most of this up here. You want to enjoy the beauty of sport, the joy that you get, how lucky you are playing the sport. Lots of people would do anything to have your ability or the opportunities that you have as an athlete to play your sport, certainly professionally. And so not to take it for granted, all these factors, not to using those things for shaming or guilt, that's for sure, but appreciation. And so that comes with joy. And then there is no room then for depression because you've done your best. And the athlete is aware of what's going on. They're not judging themselves. They don't judge circumstance. They don't judge situations. Nothing. And so then if nothing is there, there's nothing here, then the athlete is free to execute without the fear of having themselves being judged, judging themselves, or having the fear of that they're going to be judged by other people because they don't care, quite frankly. There's nothing there. And that's the freedom. That's freedom. It can be achieved, but it takes work. And so I'm not one for yoga or things like that, but I'll tell you this, perhaps I will in the future, because that is a great way to still the mind, S-T-I-L, keep the mind quiet and still. And so I think what we're seeing, though, as this is 2019, we're seeing a group of professional golfers come from Asia, and they appear to be mindful, because what I have noticed over time is that, certainly in the LPGA, is that I don't see a lot of emotion there at all. Now, my question is do they actually enjoy the sport? Are they getting some self-satisfaction out of the sport? Don't know. But this is a phenomenon that's been going on now with the LPGA for some time. And so my professional opinion is that these athletes are, I think that as far as a culture, they're playing the sport for different reasons than the another kind of athlete, the traditional athlete. Maybe they have more of a cultural view of playing the sport, perhaps. I don't know. But the other thing is that it's not that they take it more serious than their counterparts, is that they just don't appear to allow their emotions to overcome them, so that doesn't distract them from the next shot. Now, my only thoughts are that even after a great win, there doesn't seem to be a lot of emotion there. So maybe they've taken it to the nth degree where, it's almost robotic in a way, and that would be a shame. I don't know that for sure. That's just me professionally looking in through the looking glass. I could be wrong on that. But I've been around enough golfers to notice when people allow golf shots to really get under their skin because they've connected expectations to their performance, and then if they don't meet their expectations, then of course they'll fall apart. But these athletes that I am mentioning now, they don't seem to have that at all. In other words, they'll hit the shot, and if the shot doesn't come off, they just simply analyze it and then move forward. There is no slamming the clubs down, yelling or screaming at the caddy or whatever. They simply seem to just figure out what happened and they move on. It seems like to me the ultimate kind of mindfulness, but I'm not sure that they haven't discharged all the joy of sport as well. I don't know. That's what I have observed over time. So as far as you are concerned, whether you're the athlete or the coach or the consultant, it's just something that you can discuss with your athlete to see if you think that would be appropriate for them. And then check out my module on mindfulness, how to increase mindfulness, and to see if that might work for your athlete who has been complaining or who you have noticed has dropped their level of concentration and focus due to situational anxiety. When I'm working with my golf clients, I always tell them that when you're practicing, whether it's on the range or practice round on the golf course, you take it serious, and then to actually get yourself in situations where you want to be. In other words, this shot, it counts. This counts here. And so the reason that I ask them to do that is so that they're not distracted if they get in that situation. And so this is part of concentration, because see, that's what happens. That is part of the reason why that people lose their focus, is that external factors come into play. They're not prepared. There's old adages about experience and so forth and so on, but there's no substitute for experience. You got to be in these situations, so forth and so on. Well, you can get in those situations in practice. You have to sort of make it simulation. You have to sort of make practice as a simulation of the real deal. Your subconscious mind is not going to know the difference. And so if you can get in those situations and in practice that this shot really counts, then when you're in that situation, in a game, subconscious mind, it doesn't know the difference. You've already done it 1,000 times in the past. So guess what? You're there now, and hopefully it'll have the same result as that you've been doing in practice, for the last several years. That's one of the ways to help an athlete or help yourself overcome situational anxiety that takes away from concentration and focus. You've done it 1,000 times because you've done it 1,000 times in practice. One last thing that I have experienced myself many times is that your competitor will try to, sometimes they'll use gamesmanship to try to get you out of your focus, out of concentration. One of the things in golf, people will They used to. I'm not sure they're doing it as much anymore, but they'll jingle coins in their pocket, or they'll cough or something like that, trying to break your focus, trying to break your concentration. That's the reason why, if you ever get in a situation, I don't care what sport you're playing, and you see an athlete trying to get you out of your routine by using gamesmanship like that, you just back out of there and start over. And then you can use that towards them. You can use that at them and let them know that you're aware of what's going on. You know exactly what's going on. You know what they're doing. And then if, that in itself may backfire on them. But make sure that it doesn't get too far under your skin. You're aware. You let them know you're aware, and then get out of there and start all over. If something comes, I don't know how many times I have seen it, where an athlete will get out of their routine, something happens, and then just go up and continue to make the stroke or the putt, and then they'll have failure. I would venture to say at that point in time, they regret doing what they do. They knew they should have backed out of there, but they didn't. They just go ahead and get it over with. This is easy. They may have judged it right there and then went for it. They should have backed out of there, but they didn't. And so you'll always see a great athlete, though, if they're not sure, wind's blowing, a factor has changed, they'll stop and they'll get back into their routine. Very important to stay in your routine. Why? Why is it important to stay in your routine? Well, the reason is because it can be counted on. It builds trust. Trust is another word for confidence. And then there's the C word in athletics. And so you're not rushing this thing. You're in control, which is another big one, the C word, control. And these are things that you can control as an athlete. You're not allowing other people, whether it be a gamesman, the audience, the crowd, whatever, the environment, you're not allowing it to interfere with your performance. In fact, if it's raining outside or the wind is blowing, that's something that you can use as an advantage, because probably 80 to 90% of your competitors, if you're in golf and you're playing outdoors, they're going to be complaining about those environments. They're going to be complaining about the situation that they're going in, where you can reframe that and say, fantastic. The worse weather, the better. Beautiful. I love it, because it gives them an advantage. See, and so then they are in control of their space, the puzzle. They're in control. They're not going to allow the wind, the rain, and the conditions to negatively affect them. In fact, they're using it to their advantage, whereas most players say, oh, God, I got to go out in this weather today. You see what I'm saying? They've allowed a variable to come in to negatively affect them. Therefore, they're not focused on what they're trying to do. All they're focused on is the weather. You see? So concentration and focus is in your control. It is in your athlete's control. They just have to be aware of how to maneuver it in their mind. So there you have just a brief overview of focus and concentration, where it comes from, and how you can regain it if you lose it, and how you can maintain it if you ever find yourself in a situation where the average athlete would become agitated or cognitively aroused. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.